Jacob, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're both an actor and a Palestine activist.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your journey? What shaped your activism, especially as a Jewish American?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I became an actor, I was actually a social worker. I went to graduate school at Columbia University. I was always motivated by social justice issues. And when I became an actor and started doing sketch comedy and working in TV and film, I did content that was related to social justice issues like Black Lives Matter, workers' rights. But when October 7th happened, I spoke up immediately and I said to the world on my Instagram, like, hey, look, this isn't happening because Palestinians don't like Jews. This is because they've been oppressed for 70 some odd years. And this is what happens when you put people in a cage and treat them like this. And I was immediately attacked by people, my family, people in the Jewish community. They immediately were calling me a terrorist supporter for taking this stance, especially early on when the world was kind of on Israel's side for that first month or so, So it was just a really an experience that helped evolve me. I started going to protests in New York City and DC, meeting Palestinians, learning about, when we grow up as Jews in America, we're not taught about the Nakba. We're just told that, occupied Palestine was just this area that was open and there was no one there, and it was a land without people, and we know that's not true at this point. So, my journey over the last 2 years has really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I think it's really important as a Jewish American to really speak out and be someone who will be a voice to help center Palestinian voices, because unfortunately, with the world that we live in, with racism and white supremacy and Jewish supremacy, people tend to listen to me more than they will to someone who's actually Palestinian from Gaza. So I try to use my privilege and my platform, because I already had a lot of millions of followers before getting involved with the movement. So I just feel like it's a duty to use that platform in the right way for people to advocate for free Palestine.
And this duty that you took upon actually led you to be on the Handala.
Yes.
Attempting to break the siege.
Yes.
And prior to that, a lot of people were telling you to, okay, if you love Palestine so much, go to Gaza, right?
Yes, they're like, if you love them so much, why don't you go to Gaza? And I said, well, I tried, but Israel kidnapped us. So you can't really use that excuse anymore. I was actually part of the Flotilla, 2 of them before the one in Malta where Israel bombed our ship. I was there just to help with the launch, with Greta and Nicole.
Yeah.
And after that, I decided, if the opportunity came up, that I would be willing to go on the flotilla, because people need to step up. If it takes something as extreme as me getting on a ship and risking our lives to go to try and break the siege, then I said, so be it. Because I think too many people in the West are sort of apathetic, or they do the bare minimum. They'll go to maybe one protest a month and they'll pat themselves on the back like, okay, I'm a good person. I went to one protest. I can go back to my daily life. So I think, being someone who's a Jewish American, being on that ship, it was really important that I was willing to face down the occupation face to face, and no matter what the consequences would be. Now I'm partially Palestinian now because I'm banned for life from ever returning there. So I guess being Palestinians get more in common every month that I'm part of this movement.
Yeah, so can you tell us what exactly happened once the IOF forces actually detained you, and how did they eventually lead to banning you for life from entering?
Yeah, so we had been on the water. We left from Italy. We were on the water. It took about 7.5 days. There were 21 of us on the ship. When they came up alongside the ship, we basically, as soon as the sun went down, I think we were about 60 nautical miles away from Gaza. The captain of the ship hit the alarm, and we got into position because we were training every day of what we would do if we're intercepted. So we got into our positions, as you saw on, as it was streaming on YouTube. And basically they pulled up alongside of us, the warship, and they're like, hello, Handala, this is the Israeli army. You have been a long 7-day journey, but today your journey ends. Prepare to be boarded by Israel. And then, a couple of those sort of ships that are rubber kind of looking, they came pulling up, and their version of the Navy SEALs basically jumped on. This is the really killer unit. They're the ones that committed the massacre in Al Shifa Hospital. They're, So they got on the ship, but they didn't have their guns pointed at us because they knew we weren't a threat. They knew we were there for peace. Like, so, and they wanted to do their own Hasbra, like, you know, so when they got on the ship, you know, they're searching us. And of course, you remember the last mission, there was that moment of them giving Greta Thunberg a sandwich, and they used that as the whole thing of like, oh, it's a selfie cruise, and look, she's getting a sandwich, a treat. So we had already decided that we were doing a hunger strike as soon as we were intercepted.
Right.
So the woman who was like, you know, because they all had their faces covered like this, but she had hers. She was like, you know, a little cute nurse woman, and she goes to my friend Tan and tries to offer a sandwich, and they have their person with the camera filming it, and she says to them, you know, I don't want it. Give it to the children of Gaza that you're starving to death, you know. Wow. And then they turn to me and they try to get me, and I'm like, no, like, take your sandwich and shove it where the sun don't shine. Like, I'm not falling for that. And it was effective because if you notice, Israel didn't put out any pictures or any videos from the interception or when we got to the Ashadu port and everything like that. Once we were there, you know, when we got pulled up, they had all these cameras there. They were like filming us. They had the Israeli flags, and they were, you know, we were just chanting. We were like, free, free Palestine, and Chris was leading us in a chant as well. And
Chris Smalls.
Yeah, Chris Smalls, you know, president of the Amazon Union. And basically, they brought us to a room where we were then sort of begin to be processed. And it had already been agreed upon that some of us were like me, since I had the biggest social media following, that I would be one of the first people to leave in order to combat any Hasbra that would come out from that. As we saw, there was no Hasbra at the end of the day. They didn't really do that because we neutralized it.
Yeah, you didn't give them a chance to.
So basically, you know, and the guy's interview, he's like, oh, like, you're Jewish. What are you doing here? Like, you want to wrap tefillin? And I'm like, yeah, if I can wrap it around your neck. Like, you know, and he's like, ho, ho, ho. So basically, I agreed to, like, self-deport. You know, the other people, the 14 other people, agreed to, they wanted to do the 4 days in prison and contest the deportation, even though the result would be the same, to sort of make a political statement. So I was taken to a jail at Ben Gurion Airport for a little while with another colleague, and then brought to another jail overnight. And then the next day they brought me back early in the morning, like 5 a.m. over to Ben Gurion. And they put me on a plane at 11 a.m. And funny enough, I had my shirt that said Gaza the whole time, and I had a kufiya that someone had given me in Italy, actually, that was made by a woman who was displaced from Gaza who lived in Jordan.
Wow.
And basically, he was like, I want you to take that off. Like, I'm like, what do you mean take it? He's like, I'm gonna put you back in jail if you don't take it off. I'm like, he wasn't taking it from me. I'm like, okay. So I sat down on the plane. I'm like, I'll just put it back on when we take off. And he came back and checked twice to make sure I hadn't put it on. Like, but I sat there the whole time. It was a plane full of Israelis and Zionists. No one said a word to me the whole time, you know? And then I came back to the States, and I had a warm greeting. There was like a party of like 40 people maybe with Palestinian flags and kufiyas. It was funny because all these Israelis, because I was one of the last people off the plane, people are coming off, they're all smiling, the Zionists, you know, and then they see this big group and they're fighting with them. And my friend is like telling them like, oh, welcome home back to New York where you really are from. Never go back to Palestine. And it was just a funny moment, and it was just really nice to have that support, you know, and I was able to share some of the details of what had happened, you know, and then, you know, within like 4 or 5 days later, everyone had eventually gotten home. And, you know, I think we helped to inspire a lot of people to do more. I had a lot of content creators, people with big platforms messaging me saying, Jacob, you know, I want to be a part of the next one. And that's kind of what we hope for, is for people to want to do more as a result of our actions, you know.
And you did manage to do that. You did inspire a lot of people, and now there's more flotillas heading to Gaza. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's coming up the Global Samad Flotilla, which is a collection of people from, I believe, 40-something different nations. A bunch of ships are leaving out of Barcelona on August 31st, and some ships leaving out of Tunisia on September 4th. I'm going to be heading out to Tunisia actually to help with the launch. Unfortunately, I can't go on this ship because I've been banned for life from occupied Palestine. But that's very cocky of them to think that they're going to be around for the rest of my life, because hopefully, inshallah, they, you know, crumble at some point and we have a free Palestine. But, you know, I want to go to Tunisia to help with the launch and help give a spotlight on everything that's going on there. And it's exciting to see, you know, what will happen next. You know, I have there's like a ship full of veterans. There's a women's ship. There's a ship of Jewish Americans. There's all types of things. So we just gotta keep growing because at the end of the day, this is about breaking the illegal siege of Gaza. This is about creating a humanitarian corridor because it isn't necessarily about the aid that we're bringing on the ship because the aid on the ship is a drop in the bucket, obviously, of what's needed. It's really about creating a precedent where then if we're able to get to Gaza, then more nations will start sending ships and be able to deliver aid in a real way that will make a real impact in Gaza.
Yeah, hopefully it'll keep growing and really break the siege. And you mentioned the support you received when you came back to the States.
Yes.
Of course, the pro-Palestine community is giving you all this support.
Yeah.
But how has it been as a Jewish American dealing with family, friends, people around you ever since you started getting more and more vocal on Palestine? Did you face pushback? How has it been?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I mentioned, because I was speaking out early on, right after October 7th happened, I had family, pushing back on me. I remember my mother screaming at me, like, they're cutting babies' heads off. Like, remember the 40 babies things that we know now is total BS. It never happened. It's been hard. I mean, I don't speak to many family members anymore just because they're Zionists, and I can't, even if you're family, I don't care. If you're someone who's immoral and supporting a genocide, a Holocaust, I just can't have anything to do with you, even if we're blood. I have many friends that I've had to step away from. Not necessarily if they're Zionists, but more so they're just apathetic to what's happening in the world. Like I've worked with some of the biggest names in social media, like doing comedy content, and it just blows my mind that they can go about their everyday life making content like this isn't a genocide happening every day that American tax dollars are funding. So it's been hard. I probably don't speak to 99% of the people that used to be in my life, but the pro-Palestinian community has been really incredible, really just giving me the confidence I need to continue on this mission and giving me the love and support that I need to mentally get through this. I put on a strong face at all times, and I have Jewish people message me all the time, like, Jacob, honestly, your work gives me the confidence to be strong because I live in a family that's all Zionist. I also get messages from Arabs and Muslims who tell me, Jacob, your work reminds me that Zionism is not Judaism, that real Jews do not support what Israel is doing. So, my life at this point feels like it's bigger than myself. I don't live my life necessarily for me, and I'm sort of just a conduit to help spread the message along, because unfortunately a lot of content creators are cowards and they don't want to risk their platform. Like, I mean, I literally, as soon as I got back from the Handel, I actually had my TikTok page of 2 million followers permanently banned by TikTok for no apparent reason, community guidelines violations. So, but at the end of the day, inshallah, these things happen for a reason. I know I'll be back, and it pales in comparison, that sacrifice, to what the people of Gaza, the people of the West Bank go through every day.
Yes, of course, very beautifully said. But as you mentioned, your 2 million follower TikTok account was banned straight after coming back from the Handala at the height, perhaps, of everything. And beyond that, like, how is it, like, as an actor in Hollywood, have you faced, like, issues with being now cast in roles? Are people, like, warning you maybe not to speak out? Well,
I mean, that's always something you hear about, but ironically, I had more legit TV film roles in the past 2 years than I had in previous years during COVID and things like that. So maybe I'm such a good actor, they're willing to look past, I don't know. Like, it's hard to say because you don't know, like, you're not privy to conversations, but my manager is just like, Jake, like, they've threatened my manager agent before, and they're just like, Jacob, honestly, like, as long as you're getting auditions and booking, I don't really care, like, what you go on and that. So that's really nice to have that kind of support.
And in fact, now we're seeing in Hollywood, like, a general shift. You've been vocal since the very beginning, since October 7th. But now, very recently, we're seeing many more names coming out and finally breaking their silence and speaking. And what's your take on that?
I think it's a really great thing, because I think it's, you look at people like Michael Rappaport or Gal Gadot or Amy Schumer, and their brand is toxic now. Any project they're associated with is getting boycotted, and the studios are losing tremendous amounts of money. So I think the studios will look at them as a liability. I think in the years to come, people will look at people that actually have testicular fortitude to stand up for what's right, like Mark Ruffalo, who actually in a show with him coming out on HBO soon, that'll be a positive thing. And people that in the pro-Palestinian community want to support people that are in the entertainment industry that are standing behind Palestine, because I think it's important as artists, like we need to use our platform, our voices to speak out for the oppressed, because it's not just about like entertaining and distracting people. Like I became an actor because I wanted to use my talent and my skills to make people feel, whether it's to laugh or to cry. So I think it's going to be a positive, overall positive thing to be pro-Palestinian and support it in the industry, even though the people at the top might be Zionists and support things. But, as they say in the industry, money talks, BS walks. So, if casting someone who's a big pro-Palestinian activist helps the project, then that's what, they care about the money,
You mentioned the support that people give to pro-Palestine productions so that they become successful, and on the other hand, people are boycotting movies of Zionist actors.
Yes.
And now this boycotting action, it does have an effect. And now you've been campaigning for the global boycott on Thursdays.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that and what you hope to achieve with that?
Yeah, so this is a movement that was sort of grassroots, started out. It started last Thursday. And basically the idea is that we as a global international community start to boycott any type of spending on Thursdays. And the idea being is that this will eventually register as ripples in the economic reports of things to show the power that the people have when they come together. So ideally on Thursdays, you spend anything you need, try and buy it on Wednesday or Friday. Don't buy it on Thursday. If you need your transportation card to use the train, like buy it the day before. Just spend no money on that day. If you can call out of work, please do. But if you can't, we understand. We don't want you to lose your job. But try to use your vacation and sick days on Thursdays, just to bring down productivity. Because at the end of the day, this is the only thing that these governments and corporations respect is money. Like that's what a big part of making the South African apartheid system collapse was that they became economically sanctioned and things of that nature. So that needs to be the same effect, because I think that's what will help bring Israel to its knees is an economic collapse on their end, where they can't financially support the genocide that they're continuing on in Gaza and the West Bank. So it's something new. We don't know. I don't know. I can't say for certain how effective it will be, but it's also important because I think it will make people be more active in every day thinking about Palestine and how they can be a part of it. Because like I said earlier, like I think too many people just go to one protest a month and they say to themselves like, okay, my conscience is clear, I did my part, let me go back to my normal Western capitalistic lifestyle. Like, fighting for Palestine needs to be something that you eat, live, and breathe like 7 days a week, Not to the point that you're maybe driving yourself crazy, but you need to, we as people, as an international community, need to do more. And, I travel all over the world these past 2 years, and, everywhere I go, people support Palestine, whether it's in the South or the North, the West or the East. And if we come together as a collective, I think we can accomplish something great.
Amazing. And before you mentioned that, obviously, straight after October 7, your family was giving you lots of pushback. But do you see now, this many years into the genocide, a shifting of perspective amongst Jewish Americans?
I would say there's definitely people, it's hard because there's some people that they'll say something along the lines of oh, I don't like what Netanyahu and the government is doing, but they still support the idea of Israel, which is still not all the way. To me, there should not be an ethno-Jewish state. Jews live all over the world. We've always been a people without a land. I would argue Jews are far more safe in America or New York or Miami or California. We should not be actively colonizing the land of Palestine. We should not be doing that. But I think some Jews are starting to come around. But unfortunately, the majority of Jewish people do support Israel, do support Zionism. You hear this number quoted all the time. They'll say 95% of Jews are Zionists, which is based off this outdated study that was off of a small thing. I think it's probably more likely 70-30. So for every 2 Zionists, there's 1 anti-Zionist Jew. And I think it's becoming more and more normalized. That's why it's so important for me. I told you, Jewish people message me all the time telling me that my actions give them strength because I'm so unapologetically pro-Palestinian and very antagonistic towards Israel a little bit, just calling them out for what they're doing, the Jewish supremacy, the white supremacy that they're conducting in order to make their ethno-state work in their favor, which we all know is immoral. And it's sad because, historically, especially in America, Jews have always been a part of the front lines when it comes to progressive causes, whether it's civil rights for black people or workers' rights. But so many have this blind spot. They're like, I'm liberal except for Palestine. Like, it's like they're on board with everything else, but then they have this blind spot where they just think Palestinians want to unalive the Jews, and it's just, it's going to take time. For as long as Zionism has existed, it might take just as long to deprogram that, because, Israel, like, we have a thing called Birthright Israel, where every Jewish person in the world gets a free trip between the ages of 18 and 25 to occupy Palestine. And it's basically a brainwashing trip. They want to create this emotional connection for you as an American Jew. Because my family came from Russia, from Ukraine. Like, we're Ashkenazi Jews. We're as Semitic as Chinese people in my mind. Like, but they want to create this feeling that that's like our homeland. And I'm like, it's not. I'm not from there. Like it's just not the case. So the more we break that down, hopefully more and more Jewish people will come around. That's why it's so important for Jewish Americans to be on the front lines of this battle for Palestine.
Mm-hmm. And then how would you counter Jews who say, no, we need a state, we need it for protection because we're safe there? What do you say to them?
I would counter that with, like, this isn't 1943 Germany anymore. Like, Jews clearly are in a place of power and position and live quite well in the United States and the UK and things like that. It's just a moot point to try and do that. These are just tactics to gaslight you into making it like, oh, there's all these Muslim countries, why can't we have one Jewish one? Well, maybe you could, but you're doing it at the expense of people's lives. You're killing Palestinians. You're creating an apartheid state, like, where people are not treated equally. This has nothing to do with Judaic values. And if you look at the Torah, you look at the Talmud, like, it literally says that we're not supposed to be in that area of the world under these violent conditions. So it's just, and then you have Christian Zionists who are just support Israel, but that's because they want to see the end times, because they know that the Jews have to be back in that area for the Messiah to return. So, like, it's just, I would just argue that, the average Jew is probably safer in New York than they are trying to be a colonizer and occupying the lands.
Yeah. And speaking of Muslim countries, you've traveled extensively to Muslim countries.
Yes.
And as a Jew, did you feel unsafe when you went there?
I moved last year. I moved to Cairo, to Egypt, after I did a humanitarian trip helping people displaced from Gaza. And, my mom was like, Jacob, I'm so worried. Like, what if the Muslims kidnap you? And I'm like, Mom, the scariest thing in Cairo is trying to cross the street. Like, that's the scariest thing. But everyone I meet knows the difference between a Jewish person and a Zionist, an Israeli. Like, I'm not trying to exaggerate or trying to downplay it. Like, literally everyone I'm not though, because someone will meet me like, oh, are you Christian? You Muslim? Like, no, I'm Yahudi, but ana bakra Israel, which means I hate Israel. And they'll be like, oh, and they're like, we're best friends. Like, and, I've learned a lot about Islam over the last 2 years, and, like, realizing that, Muslims respect our prophets. They respect Abraham. They respect Moses. They say, Judaism, Christianity is a part of Islam. And I think so much brainwashing, they make it think like, my favorite thing is when people will comment like, you love Allah more than you love Hashem. I'm like, same God, same Abrahamic faith, dude. Like, there's just a lot of ignorance. So living around Muslim people has been really eye-opening, and they've been so welcoming to me. And I honestly just, it warms my heart. Like, that's the other big part of me moving out to this part of the world, is to not only help Palestinians that have been displaced and help send aid into Gaza, but to also show the world that it's a bunch of BS, that Muslims and Arabs hate white people, they hate Jews, they hate Americans. It's just not true. And so me being there helps destroy billions of dollars worth of Hasbara and decades worth of brainwashing, because they were telling me, like, if you love us so much, like the same thing, like, if you love us so much, why don't you go to Gaza? I try to go to Gaza, I get kidnapped by Israel. So just living around Muslim people, and, like, they're so welcoming and loving, and, it's just really nice to be around these people, and they really opened my eyes to show me how brainwashed we are, especially because I'm 40 years old. I'm from New York City. I grew up in the era of 9/11. It was very easy to sort of just feed in the stereotypes like, oh, Muslim is a terrorist, this, that, and the third. So not that I was ever that way with Muslim people, but it's just been very eye-opening to see it. I'm here in Istanbul, and I'm visiting the Blue Mosque, and, just, it's a beautiful thing, the way people who are Muslims embrace all cultures and don't hold hatred in their heart, you know.
Yeah. And the same way, the Handala was beautiful because you had Jewish people, you had Muslims, you had people of every race and ethnicity, Christians, all together, Americans, Australians,
all
Palestinians.
with a common cause, the free Palestine.
All together, exactly.
And everyone on that ship has the same frame of mind where it's like, we're sick and tired of watching this genocide happen. We were all willing to sacrifice our life if it came down to it for this cause. Like, because like when governments don't step up, the people must, and we need a people's revolution in order to make that happen, to get the ball rolling in the right direction. I mean, I think without a doubt we could all agree that like we have turned the corner in this fight. Like, it's not about if, it's just when Palestine will be free.
And you mentioned growing up in New York, 9/11. And now, most likely, New York's next mayor is going to be a Muslim man.
Yes, Zohran Mamdani, yes.
Yeah, you've done some skits on that.
Yes, I did some skits kind of playing into the Zionist sphere. Like, I did a one where, you know, it's a guy saying Assalamu alaikum over the subway announcement, and like, you know, just kind of, you know, because I find like when I started in the movement, I was doing very serious sort of content, like very just about the protests I would go to, like very, but then like around when the encampment started and all these Zionists and Jewish people were being like, oh, I'm scared to walk around the streets. I did a video that went very viral teaching Jews how to walk, and that went super viral. And, you know, it's just, yeah, it's just something. Like, comedy is a very effective tool. Satire is very effective at getting a message across, because if it's one thing Palestinians have, is they have a good sense of humor. And they always tell me, like, you know, Jacob, we love your videos. Like, even... Like, you know, even when we're like, people in Gaza literally message me like, Jacob, we're going through hell, but honestly, like, your videos help give me a laugh sometimes, help me take my mind off of the horrible things that are going on around me. And that's quite an honor to be told that by people in Palestine, that, you know, that my content helps them get through the day sometimes, like, you know.
Definitely, that's very beautiful. And now you've mentioned that you expect that not as a matter of will it happen, but when will it happen?
Yeah.
How do you see things headed? What would you want to tell people? Because you do so much.
Right.
What can people do to support the cause, and what would you tell them?
I would say, you know, definitely engage in the boycott. So don't go to McDonald's, don't buy Coca-Cola. Those are things that you can do in your everyday life that would help. Because when these corporations see they're losing money, then they'll pull back from their support of Israel. Contacting your politicians, which is hard because it seems like both the right and the left are both, you know, two wings of the same dirty bird, as I like to say. They both support Zionism. So ideally, I would like to see more direct action type things. Hopefully, people start going to maybe protest, not in the streets, just walking around aimlessly, but we're going to a weapons manufacturer plant and putting ourselves and stopping the shipments for a day. Because if we could just stop for one day, that will help slow things down at the very least. So just getting more involved and feeling like this is something that we all need to be behind. You know, it needs to be something that you eat, live, and breathe in order to really get the cause going and to have progress in creating a free Palestine.
Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for sharing your story, and thank you for everything that you do, all your activism, using your platform, using comedy as a way to reach more people and putting a smile on everyone's faces, especially people in Gaza. Thank you so much for being with us here.
And thank you for having me, and thank you to you and the journalists and everything, because journalists are so important. You guys are on the front lines, showing the world what's really happening, especially, you know, shout outs to all the journalists that have passed away, been martyred in Gaza, the journalists of Al Jazeera, the ones that put their life on the line every single day, trying to show the world the truth. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and free Palestine.